Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and watched the last alien vessel disappear into the darkness of space. The blue lights from the Federation ship grew smaller and smaller until they were just another dot among the stars. Then they were gone. "Sir, all Federation ships have left our space," reported Lieutenant Sam Baker from his station. His voice was quiet, almost a whisper. Everyone on the bridge knew what this meant. Jake nodded but said nothing. He had been a captain for 15 years, but he had never felt so alone. The Earth defense ship Endurance floated in the empty space around Earth, and for the first time in 50 years, no alien ships were nearby to help or protect them. "Captain, we're getting a message from Earth Command," said Communications Officer Kate Wilson. "They want to know what our orders are." Jake almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. Orders? What orders could there be now? The aliens had made their choice. They were done with humanity. It had started 3 days ago. Ambassador Zix Nueve, a tall creature, made of what looked like living crystal, had come to Earth with the final message from the Galactic Federation. Jake remembered every word of that meeting. "The Federation has made its decision," Zixneen had said, his crystal body glowing soft blue as he spoke. "Humanity will be removed from galactic society. The Terran exclusion decree is now in effect." President Maria Santos had tried to argue. "But we've been working together for 50 years. We've learned so much. We're not the same species you first met." Zix9 had shaken his crystal head. "You have not changed enough. Your species still fights wars. You still compete against each other instead of working together. You still act without thinking. The galaxy has tried to help you grow, but you refuse to learn." Jake had been in that meeting, standing behind the president as Earth's military representative. He had watched as 50 years of friendship between humans and aliens crumbled in minutes. "We have given you technology, knowledge, and guidance," Zix9 continued. "But you use our gifts to build better weapons. You use our science to gain advantage over other humans. You cannot let go of your aggressive nature." The president had pleaded, "Give us more time. We can change. We can be better." The Federation has voted. 847 civilizations agree. Humanity is not ready for galactic society. Perhaps you never will be. The galaxy will move forward without you. And now they were alone. Jake looked out at the stars and wondered how many of those tiny lights were home to the aliens who had given up on humanity. The Zephyrians with their crystal bodies and perfect logic, the Mindari, who could speak to each other with their thoughts, the Luminants, who were made of pure energy and lived for thousands of years. All of them had decided that humans were not worth saving. "Captain," Kate said again, "Earth Command is still waiting for your response." "Tell them we're coming home," Jake said finally. "All ships, return to Earth orbit." As the Endurance turned toward the blue and green planet below, Jake thought about what would happen next. The aliens had not just left them alone. They had taken their technology with them. Already, reports were coming in from across human space. The fusion reactors that powered the cities were shutting down. The medical equipment that could cure any disease was going dark. The ships that could travel faster than light were losing power. Dr. Lisa Carter, the ship's science officer, walked up to stand beside Jake. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She had spent her whole life studying alien technology, and now it was all being taken away. "How bad is it, Lisa?" Jake asked. "Bad," she said. "The aliens built safety switches into everything they gave us. When they left, they turned everything off. We have maybe a week before the orbital stations start falling from the sky." Jake felt his heart sink. What about the colonies? Mars has 3 days of power left. The Europa Research Station is already asking for evacuation. New Beijing colony just went silent an hour ago. And the barrier? Lisa nodded grimly. "I detected it forming as the last ship left. It's a quantum wall around all of human space. Nothing can get through it. We're trapped." Jake had heard rumors about the barrier. Some of the alien species had used them before to quarantine dangerous civilizations. Now humanity was locked in a box, cut off from the galaxy that had decided they were not worth saving. On the main screen, Earth grew larger as they approached. It looked so peaceful from space, blue oceans and white clouds, with the lights of cities twinkling in the darkness. It was hard to believe that this beautiful world was home to a species that 847 alien civilizations had given up on. "Sir," Sam Baker called out, "we're getting emergency signals from the Mars colonies. They're reporting system failures across the board. And from Europa," Kate added. "The research station there is losing life support." Jake closed his eyes. It was starting already. Without alien technology, humanity's space colonies could not survive. The terraforming equipment on Mars would stop working. The deep space research stations would lose power. Millions of humans living in space would die unless they could get back to Earth. But there were not enough ships to evacuate everyone, and even if there were, Earth could not support all those people. The planet's population had grown to 12 billion. But most of their food came from off-world farms that used alien technology. Without that technology, those farms would fail. "Captain," Lisa said quietly, "I've been running the numbers. If we lose all the alien technology, Earth can probably support about 4 billion people. Maybe 5 billion, if we're lucky." Jake opened his eyes and looked at her. "That means ... 7 billion people will die. Maybe 8 billion. And that's if everything goes perfectly." The bridge was silent except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Everyone had heard Dr. Carter's words. Everyone understood what they meant. "There has to be something we can do," Jake said. "Some way to fix this." Lisa shook her head. The aliens were very thorough. They didn't just take their technology back. They made sure we couldn't copy it or rebuild it. Every piece of equipment has quantum locks that we can't break. "What about the other colonies?" Jake asked. "The ones further out." "The Titan mining station has 2 days of air left. The asteroid belt miners are already heading back to Earth, but most of them won't make it. The research ships exploring the outer system are stranded." Jake felt anger building in his chest. The aliens had done this on purpose. They had not just abandoned humanity. They had made sure that leaving would kill millions of people. This was not just exclusion from galactic society. This was genocide. "Sir," Kate said, "President Santos is on the emergency channel. She wants to speak with you." Jake nodded. "Put her through." The president's face appeared on the screen. She looked like she had aged 10 years in the last 3 days. Her eyes were red from crying, and her voice was shaky. "Captain Morrison," she said, "I need you to organize the evacuation of our space colonies. Save as many as you can." "Yes, ma'am," Jake replied, "but we don't have enough ships." "Then use everything that can fly. Cargo haulers, research vessels, even the old chemical rockets. I don't care if they're not designed for passenger transport. Make them work." Jake understood. They were going to try to save everyone they could, even if it meant overloading ships and taking terrible risks. It was better than just letting people die. "What about the barrier?" Jake asked. "Can we break through it?" The president shook her head. "Our scientists are working on it, but it's beyond our current technology. We're trapped until we can figure out how to get past it." After the call ended, Jake stood alone on the bridge and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the aliens were probably watching humanity's final hours. They would see the colonies fail and the people die, and they would think that they had been right to give up on such a violent and chaotic species. But Jake Morrison was not ready to give up. He had spent his whole life protecting humanity, and he was not going to stop now. The aliens thought humans were too aggressive and unpredictable to be saved. Maybe they were right about that. But maybe those same qualities would help humanity survive what was coming. The galaxy had given up on them, but Jake Morrison had not given up on humanity. 5 years had passed since the aliens left, and Jake Morrison looked older than his 53 years. His hair was now completely gray, and deep lines marked his face. The weight of command had grown heavier with each passing month as humanity struggled to survive. The Endurance still flew, but barely. The ship's hull was patched with metal plates from a dozen different sources. The engines ran on fuel that Dr. Lisa Carter had figured out how to make from asteroid mining. It was not as good as the alien technology they had lost, but it worked. Jake stood in the ship's meeting room, looking at reports from across human space. The news was always bad these days. Another colony had failed. Another ship had broken down. Another 1,000 people had died. Mars colony is asking for evacuation again, reported Commander Amy Walsh. She was Dr. Carter's replacement as science officer, a young woman who had learned to work miracles with broken equipment. Their water recycling system is failing. How many people? Jake asked. 50,000. But we can only take maybe 10,000 with the ships we have available. Jake rubbed his tired eyes. It was always the same choice. Who lives and who dies? He had been making that choice for 5 years now, and it never got easier. What about the Unity movement? Jake asked. Are they still refusing to help with the evacuation? Amy nodded. Helen Ross gave another speech yesterday. She said that if we keep acting like warriors and fighters, we'll never prove to the galaxy that we've changed. She wants us to focus on becoming peaceful, instead of trying to save everyone. Jake felt anger rise in his chest. Helen Ross had been a senator before the aliens left. Now she led a group of humans who believed that the aliens had been right to abandon them. The Unity movement taught that humans needed to give up their aggressive nature and learn to live in peace and harmony. What about the Defiance Coalition? Jake asked. Rick Stone is still building his army, Amy replied. He's got about 20,000 people training for war. He says that when we break through the barrier, we need to be ready to fight the aliens for what they did to us. Jake shook his head. Humanity was falling apart, just like the aliens had predicted. Half the survivors wanted to become peaceful and gentle. The other half wanted to prepare for war. Neither group was focused on the most important thing, staying alive. Sir, came a voice from the communication station. We're getting a distress signal from the Europa research station. Jake walked over to the communications console. Europa was one of the last functioning research stations, built deep in the ice of Jupiter's moon. Dr. Lisa Carter had moved there after the Endurance could no longer support a full science team. This is Dr. Carter, came the familiar voice over the radio. We've got a problem here. The heating system is failing, and we can't fix it with the parts we have. How long do you have? Jake asked. Maybe a week. 2 weeks, if we're lucky. But there's something else, something important. I think I've found a way to break through the barrier. Jake felt his heart jump. What did you say? I've been studying the quantum wall that's keeping us trapped. I think I know how it works. If I'm right, I might be able to create a device that can punch a hole through it. Are you sure? No, Lisa admitted. But it's the first real hope we've had in 5 years. I need help though. I need equipment and people who understand quantum physics. Jake looked around the room at his officers. They all looked tired and worn down, but now there was something else in their eyes. Hope. We'll be there in 3 days, Jake said. Hold on, Lisa. As the Endurance made its way toward Europa, Jake thought about what 5 years of isolation had done to humanity. The population of Earth had dropped from 12 billion to 6 billion. The colonies that had not been evacuated were now silent. Ships floated dead in space, their crews long gone. But humans had also shown incredible ability to adapt. When the alien fusion reactors failed, human engineers had rebuilt old nuclear plants. When the medical equipment stopped working, human doctors had relearned surgery and medicine from books. When the food synthesizers broke down, human farmers had started growing crops in every available space. The species that the aliens had called to aggressive and chaotic, had proven to be remarkably creative. They found ways to make things work that should not have worked. They built solutions from spare parts and determination. "Captain," Amy said, "we're getting reports from the outer colonies. The Titan mining station has started growing food in their storage areas. The asteroid belt miners have turned their ships into mobile farms. People are surviving in ways that shouldn't be possible." Jake smiled for the first time in weeks. Humans are stubborn. The aliens never understood that about us. When they reached Europa, Jake could see why Dr. Carter was worried. The research station was built into the ice, with only a few domes visible on the surface. One of the domes was dark, and ice was forming on the others. Lisa met them at the airlock. She looked thinner than Jake remembered, and her hair was now completely white, but her eyes were bright with excitement. "I've been working on this for 2 years," she said, as she led them through the station. "Ever since I figured out how the barrier works." They entered a lab filled with equipment that Jake did not recognize. Most of it looked like it had been built from spare parts and salvaged alien technology. "The quantum barrier isn't just a wall," Lisa explained. "It's more like a bubble. It surrounds all of human space and keeps us from leaving. But every bubble has a weak point." She pointed to a device that looked like a metal sphere covered in wires and crystal fragments. "This is a quantum resonance generator. If I can get it to the right frequency, it should be able to create a small hole in the barrier." "How small?" Jake asked. "Small enough for maybe one ship to get through, and it would only last for a few minutes before the barrier repairs itself." Jake felt his excitement fade. "One ship? What good is that?" "It's not about how many ships get through," Lisa said. "It's about proving that we can do it. If we can break through the barrier once, we can do it again. We can start sending scout ships to explore the galaxy and find out what's happening out there." Amy was studying the device. "What do you need to make it work?" "Power. Lots of power. More than this station can provide. And I need to test it first, which means I need to get close to the barrier." Jake thought about it. Getting close to the barrier was dangerous. The quantum field could damage ships and kill people. But if there was a chance to break free from their prison, they had to try. "What about the Unity movement and the Defiance Coalition?" Jake asked. "If we can break through the barrier, they're going to want to know about it." Lisa nodded. "Helen Ross will probably try to stop us. She thinks we should wait for the aliens to forgive us and let us out. Rick Stone will want to turn it into a weapon to attack the aliens." "And what do you think we should do?" Jake asked. Lisa looked out through the station's window at the stars beyond. "I think we should find out what's happening in the galaxy. 5 years is a long time. Maybe things have changed out there." Over the next few days, Jake and his crew worked with Lisa to move the quantum resonance generator to a ship that could get close to the barrier. They used the research vessel Discovery, a small ship that had been designed for deep space exploration. The work was dangerous. The generator used pieces of alien technology that were not meant to work together. Every time they tested it, there was a chance it would explode and kill everyone on the ship. But slowly, it began to work. The quantum field readings showed that the device was affecting the barrier in small ways. The barrier flickered and wavered when the generator was turned on. "It's working," Lisa said with excitement. "The barrier is responding to the resonance frequency." Jake felt hope growing in his chest. For the first time in 5 years, humanity had a chance to reach beyond their prison. They could explore the galaxy again. They could find out what had happened to the aliens who had abandoned them. But he also felt fear. What if the galaxy had moved on without them? What if the aliens had found other species to replace humanity? What if there were new threats out there that humanity was not ready to face? "Lisa," Jake said, "when we break through the barrier, where should we go?" She thought for a moment. The nearest Federation outpost used to be in the Alpha Centauri system. If it's still there, we might be able to find out what's been happening in the galaxy. And if it's not there, then we keep looking until we find answers. Jake nodded. They were about to take a huge risk. The quantum resonance generator might not work. It might destroy the ship that tried to use it. Even if it did work, they would be sending a small crew into unknown space with no way to communicate with Earth. But they had to try. Humanity had been trapped for 5 years, slowly dying as their technology failed and their colonies went dark. The galaxy had given up on them, but Jake Morrison was not ready to give up on humanity. The device was almost ready. Soon they would know if humans could break free from their prison. Soon they would learn what had happened to the galaxy that had abandoned them, and maybe, just maybe, they would find a way to save their species from extinction. The emergency signal came from the Deep Space Monitoring Station at the edge of human space. Lieutenant Sam Baker, now promoted to commander, was the first to see it on his screen. "Captain Morrison," he called out, his voice tight with worry, "you need to see this." Jake hurried to the communications station on the bridge of the Endurance. The ship was now 6 years old since the aliens left, and it showed. The lights flickered sometimes, and the air recycling system made strange noises. But it still flew, and that was what mattered. "What is it, Sam?" Jake asked. "Long-range sensors are picking up something big moving through Federation space. Multiple contacts, massive energy readings. But here's the strange part. We're also getting Federation distress signals." Jake felt his blood go cold. "Federation distress signals. Are you sure?" "Yes, sir." Multiple signals, all saying the same thing. They're under attack by something called the Devourers. Dr. Amy Walsh looked up from her station. "That's impossible. The Federation has the most advanced military in the galaxy. What could attack them?" Sam played the recordings. Through the static and quantum interference, they could hear alien voices speaking in panic. The crystal-clear tones of this were broken and frightened. The singing voices of the Mindari were filled with terror. Unknown vessels attacking Zephyrian homeworld. Came one transmission. Conventional weapons ineffective. Requesting immediate assistance. Mindari defense fleet destroyed. Came another. Enemy ships are consuming our planets. They're eating everything. Jake listened to transmission after transmission. The Federation, the same organization that had abandoned humanity for being too aggressive, was being destroyed by something even worse. "How long have these signals been coming through?" Jake asked. "About a week," Sam replied. "But the attacks started months ago. The signals are just now reaching us because of the distance." Amy was studying the sensor data. "Captain, based on the energy readings, whatever is attacking the Federation is moving fast. Really fast. At their current rate of advance, they'll reach human space in less than 2 years. 2 years? Jake felt his stomach drop. "What are we supposed to do against something that can destroy the Federation?" "I don't know," Amy admitted. "But we better figure it out fast." Over the next few days, more information trickled in through the monitoring stations. The Devourers, as the Federation called them, were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They were massive ships that seemed to be part machine and part living creature. They consumed everything in their path. Planets, moons, even stars. The Federation's response was exactly what Jake would have expected. They formed committees to study the threat. They held conferences to discuss strategy. They tried to negotiate with the Devourers, offering tribute and promises of cooperation. None of it worked. The Devourers had no interest in talking. They only wanted to consume. "The Federation is fighting them the same way they fight everything," Amy observed. "Perfect coordination, logical strategies, predictable tactics. And it's not working." Jake nodded. He had seen Federation military exercises before the aliens. Everything was planned down to the smallest detail. Every ship knew exactly what to do at exactly the right time. It was impressive, but it was also completely predictable. "Sir?" Sam called out. "Dr. Carter is requesting an emergency meeting." She says it's about the quantum resonance generator. Jake made his way to the small conference room, where Lisa Carter was waiting. She looked exhausted, but there was something else in her eyes. Determination. "I've been monitoring the Federation signals," she said without preamble. "The Devourers are adapting to every strategy the Federation uses. They learn from each battle and counter every tactic." "So what are you thinking?" Jake asked. "I'm thinking that maybe the Federation was wrong about us. Maybe our chaotic, unpredictable nature isn't a weakness. Maybe it's exactly what the galaxy needs right now." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "You want to break through the barrier and fight these things?" "I want to give humanity a choice," Lisa replied. "Right now, we're trapped in here waiting to die. When the Devourers finish with the Federation, they'll come for us too. The barrier won't stop them forever. But we only have about 30 ships that can actually fight," Jake pointed out. "What can we do against an enemy that's destroying the entire Federation?" Lisa leaned forward. "We can do what humans do best. We can be unpredictable. We can be chaotic. We can be the one thing in the galaxy that they can't figure out how to counter." Jake thought about it. The idea was insane. Humanity had been abandoned by the galaxy and left to die. Their technology was failing, their colonies were gone, and their population was a fraction of what it had been. What could they possibly do against an enemy that was consuming entire star systems? But then he thought about the last 6 years. Humans had survived things that should have killed them. They had found ways to make broken technology work. They had grown food in places where nothing should grow. They had kept going when any reasonable species would have given up. "What do you need?" Jake asked. Lisa smiled. "I need every ship we can spare, and I need volunteers who are willing to die for a species that gave up on us." "You think humans will volunteer to save the aliens who abandoned them?" "I think humans will volunteer to save the galaxy," Lisa replied, "because that's what we do. We don't give up, even when everyone else has given up on us." Jake called a meeting of all the remaining human leaders. Helen Ross came from Earth, still preaching that humanity needed to learn peace and harmony. Rick Stone came from his military training camps, still preparing for war against the Federation. The colony governors came from the few remaining outposts that were still functional. "The galaxy is dying," Jake told them. "The Federation is being destroyed by something they can't fight. In less than 2 years, that same enemy will come for us." Helen Ross was the first to speak. "This is exactly what I've been warning about. The galaxy is full of violence and aggression. We need to show them that we've changed, that we've learned to be peaceful." Rick Stone laughed bitterly. "Peaceful? The aliens threw us away like garbage. Now they're dying and they want our help. Let them burn. And when the Devourers are done with the Federation, they'll come for us too," Jake pointed out. "We can't hide behind the barrier forever." Governor Bill Hayes from the Mars colony spoke up. "What exactly are you proposing, Captain?" Jake looked around the room at the tired faces of humanity's leaders. "I'm proposing that we break through the barrier and fight. Not for the Federation, not for the aliens who abandoned us, but for ourselves. Because, if we don't, everyone dies." "With what?" Helen Ross asked. "We have maybe 30 ships that can fight. The Federation has thousands of ships, and they're losing. But we have something the Federation doesn't," Amy Walsh said, stepping forward. "We have the ability to be unpredictable. The Devourers adapt to logical strategies and coordinated attacks. But they've never faced anything like human tactics." "Human tactics?" Rick Stone was interested now. "What do you mean?" "I mean we don't fight like the Federation," Amy explained. "We don't use perfect coordination or logical strategies. We improvise. We adapt. We do things that don't make sense to anyone else." Lisa Carter nodded. "The Devourers have been winning because they can predict what the Federation will do. They study their tactics and counter them. But how do you counter an enemy that doesn't even know what they're going to do next?" The room was quiet for a long moment. Jake could see the leaders thinking, weighing the options. Stay trapped behind the barrier and hope the devourers would ignore them, or break free and risk everything on a desperate gamble. How many ships do we have that can actually make the journey? Governor Hayes asked. 30 combat vessels, Amy replied. Maybe 40 if we include the research ships and cargo haulers, against an enemy that's destroying the entire Federation, Helen Ross said. It's suicide, maybe, Jake admitted, but it's better than sitting here waiting to die. Rick Stone stood up. I'm in. My people have been training for war anyway. Might as well use that training for something useful. I can't support this, Helen Ross said. It goes against everything we should be learning from our isolation. Then stay behind, Jake said. But don't try to stop the people who want to fight. One by one, the other leaders made their choices. Some agreed to send ships and volunteers. Others refused. In the end, Jake had commitments for 28 ships and about 5,000 volunteers. It was not much against an enemy that was consuming the galaxy, but it was what humanity had. As the meeting broke up, Lisa Carter approached. Jake, there's something else, she said quietly. The quantum resonance generator is ready, but using it will probably destroy the barrier completely. Once we go through, we can't come back. Jake looked out at the stars through the station's window. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was dying. The Federation that had abandoned humanity was being destroyed by an enemy that seemed unstoppable. But humans had never been good at accepting defeat. They had survived the loss of alien technology. They had adapted to life in isolation. They had kept going when any reasonable species would have given up. Now, they had a choice. They could stay safe behind their barrier and hope the devourers would ignore them, or they could break free and face an enemy that had destroyed civilizations far more advanced than their own. When do we leave? Jake asked. As soon as the ships are ready, Lisa replied. Maybe a week. Jake nodded. In 1 week, humanity would either take its first step toward saving the galaxy, or it would take its last step toward extinction. Either way, they would face their fate as they had faced everything else since the aliens left. They would face it together, and they would not give up. The quantum resonance generator hummed with power as Dr. Lisa Carter made final adjustments to the device. The Discovery, the small research ship that would carry the generator, was docked with the Endurance at the edge of human space. Beyond them, the invisible barrier that had trapped humanity for 6 years waited to be broken. Jake Morrison stood in the Discovery's tiny bridge, watching his crew prepare for what they all knew was a one-way trip. They had managed to gather 32 ships, everything from military vessels to converted cargo haulers. 5,000 volunteers had signed up, knowing they would probably never see Earth again. Generator is at full power, Lisa reported. The barrier is showing quantum fluctuations. I think we can punch through it. Commander Amy Walsh checked her instruments. All ships report ready, Captain. The fleet is in position. Jake looked at the ragged collection of ships on his screen. They were nothing like the sleek, powerful vessels of the Federation. The Endurance was held together with spare parts and determination. The Defiant, Rick Stone's command ship, was an old cargo hauler with weapons bolted to its hull. The other ships were even worse, mining vessels, research ships, and civilian transports that had been converted for war. Sir, Sam Baker called from the communications station. We're getting a signal from Earth. It's Helen Ross. Jake sighed. Put her through. Helen Ross's face appeared on the screen. The leader of the Unity movement looked older and more tired. Then Jake remembered. Captain Morrison, I'm begging you to reconsider. This is exactly the kind of aggressive behavior that got us excluded from the galaxy in the first place. The galaxy is dying, Helen, Jake replied. The Federation is being destroyed by something they can't fight. If we don't act now, everyone dies. But violence isn't the answer, Helen insisted. There has to be another way. We should try to communicate with these devourers. Try to understand what they want. They want to consume everything, Jake said. They've already tried to communicate with them. It didn't work. Then we should show them that we're different, that we've learned to be peaceful. Jake felt his patience wearing thin. Helen, I respect what you're trying to do, but sometimes peace isn't enough. Sometimes you have to fight for what's right. Helen Ross shook her head sadly. This will only prove to the galaxy that they were right about us, that we're too violent to be saved. Maybe, Jake admitted, but I'd rather die fighting than live in a cage. The transmission ended, and Jake turned back to his crew. Lisa, are we ready? As ready as we'll ever be, she replied. Remember, the opening will only last a few minutes. Once we're through, there's no going back. Jake nodded and opened a channel to all ships. This is Captain Morrison. In 60 seconds, we're going to break through the barrier that has trapped us for 6 years. On the other side, we'll face an enemy that has destroyed civilizations far more advanced than ours. But we have something they don't expect, the ability to be unpredictable. We're going to show the galaxy what humans can do when we're fighting, for our survival. All ships, prepare for barrier breach. The countdown began. Jake watched the numbers on his screen tick down toward 0. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency. After 6 years of isolation, they were finally going to rejoin the galaxy, but they were going into battle against an enemy that seemed unstoppable. 10 seconds, Lisa announced. Generator at maximum power. The quantum resonance generator screamed with energy. The Discovery shook as the device fought to tear a hole in the barrier that surrounded human space. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Activating generator. The universe exploded with light. The barrier, invisible to normal eyes, suddenly became visible as it twisted and writhed under the assault of the quantum generator. A hole opened in the fabric of space-time, creating a passage just wide enough for the human fleet to pass through. Barrier. Breach successful. Lisa shouted over the noise. The opening is stable, but it won't last long. All ships, go, 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 Jake ordered. The human fleet surged forward through the opening. The Endurance led the way, followed by the Defiant and the other combat ships. Behind them came the converted cargo haulers and research vessels, their crews praying that their makeshift weapons would be enough. Jake felt the ship shudder as they passed through the barrier. For a moment, everything went white, and he thought they had failed. Then the Discovery emerged on the other side, and Jake got his first look at the galaxy after 6 years of isolation. What he saw made his blood run cold. The space around them was filled with debris, pieces of ships, some of them clearly Federation. Vessels drifted in the darkness. In the distance, Jake could see the glow of dying stars, their light dim and flickering. "My God," Amy whispered. "What happened here?" Before Jake could answer, the ship's sensors began screaming warnings. "Multiple contacts," Sam reported. "Big ones, coming in fast." On the main screen, Jake saw them. The Devourers were exactly as the Federation reports had described, massive ships that seemed to be part machine and part living creature. They moved with predatory grace, their whole surfaces rippling like skin. Each one was the size of a small moon, and there were dozens of them. "Federation ships detected," Amy announced. "They're engaging the Jake watched as the sleek, crystalline vessels of the Zephyrians moved in perfect formation against the enemy. Their weapons fired in precise patterns, each shot calculated for maximum effect. It was beautiful to watch, like a deadly dance performed by masters. And it was completely useless. The Devourers absorbed the Federation attacks without even slowing down. Their whole surfaces adapted to each weapon, becoming immune to whatever hit them. Within minutes, they were countering the Federation tactics, their own weapons tearing through the crystal ships like paper. "They're learning," Lisa said in horror. The Devourers are adapting to everything the Federation does. Jake watched a Zephyrian cruiser die in a burst of light. The ship's crew, beings of living crystal who had existed for thousands of years, were gone in seconds. More Federation ships followed, their perfect tactics useless against an enemy that could adapt to anything. "Captain," Sam called out urgently, "the Federation ships are trying to communicate with us. They're telling us to retreat." Jake almost laughed. The same aliens who had abandoned humanity were now trying to protect them. "Tell them we're not going anywhere." "Sir, they're warning us that conventional weapons are useless against the Devourers. They say we should evacuate the area immediately." "I'm sure they do," Jake replied. "But we didn't come here to run away." A new voice came over the communication channel. It was crystalline and musical, the voice of a unknown human vessels. "This is Admiral Kethfer of the Federation Defense Force. You must withdraw immediately. These enemies are beyond your capabilities." Jake recognized the name. Admiral Kethfer had been one of the beings who voted to exclude humanity from the galaxy. Now he was trying to save them. "Admiral," Jake replied, "this is Captain Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. We're not going anywhere." "Captain Morrison, you do not understand. The Devourers adapt to all conventional tactics. They have destroyed fleets 10 times your size. Your weapons cannot harm them." "Maybe not," Jake admitted, "but we have something you don't." "What is that?" Jake smiled grimly. "We're completely unpredictable." Before the Admiral could respond, Jake opened a channel to all human ships. "All vessels, this is Morrison. You can see what we're up against. The Federation's perfect tactics aren't working, so we're going to do something different. We're going to fight like humans." "What does that mean?" came a voice from one of the other ships. "It means no coordination, no battle plan, no logical strategy. Every ship fights independently. Do whatever you think will work, and when that stops working, try something else. The only rule is, don't be predictable." Jake could hear, confused, voices from his crew, but he ignored them. "Amy, take us toward the nearest Devourer. Maximum speed." "Sir, that's suicide." "Maybe, but it's better than dying like the Federation ships." The Endurance accelerated toward the massive enemy vessel. Around them, the other human ships scattered in all directions, each one following its own plan. The Defiant charged straight at a Devourer, its improvised weapons firing wildly. A mining ship started dropping explosive charges, like it was mining asteroids. A research vessel began broadcasting random radio signals, trying to confuse the enemy sensors. The Devourers hesitated. For the first time since the battle began, they seemed uncertain. Their adaptive systems were designed to counter logical strategies and coordinated attacks. But the human fleet was doing none of those things. "They're not adapting," Lisa said in amazement. "The Devourers don't know how to counter us." Jake watched as a small human fighter ship, no bigger than a shuttle, managed to damage a Devourer's hull by ramming it at full speed. The pilot was probably dead, but he had accomplished something that the entire Federation fleet had failed to do. "All ships," Jake announced, "it's working. Keep doing whatever you're doing. Don't follow any patterns. Don't be predictable." The battle became a chaos of individual actions. Human ships attacked from unexpected angles, used weapons in ways they were never designed for, and employed tactics that made no sense to anyone else. A cargo hauler rammed a Devourer and exploded, taking out one of the enemy's weapons. A research ship used its sensor array to overload a Devourer's adaptive systems. The Defiant actually managed to board a Devourer, its crew fighting hand-to-hand combat inside the alien vessel. For the first time in months, the Devourers were taking damage. Their perfect adaptation meant nothing against enemies who refused to follow any logical plan. But the human fleet was paying a terrible price. Half their ships were already destroyed, and more were dying every minute. They were inflicting damage on the Devourers, but not enough to stop them. "Captain," Amy said, "we're not going to win this battle. There are too many of them." Jake knew she was right. The human fleet was brave and unpredictable, but they were still vastly outnumbered. They had proven that the Devourers could be hurt, but they couldn't defeat them all. "Lisa," Jake said, "you said the Devourers have a hive mind. Is there a way to use that against them?" Lisa looked at her instruments. "Maybe. If we could create a feedback loop in their collective consciousness, it might disrupt their entire network." "How do we do that?" "We'd need to get the quantum resonance generator close to their command ship, the one that's controlling all the others." Jake looked at the battle raging around them. The largest Devourer was hanging back from the fight, directing the other ships like a conductor leading an orchestra. That had to be the command ship. "How close?" Jake asked. "Inside their hull," Lisa said quietly. "The generator would have to be detonated inside the command ship to create the feedback loop." Jake understood. It was a suicide mission. Whoever took the generator to the command ship would not be coming back. "I'll do it," he said. "No, sir," Amy protested. "Let me take a fighter. You're needed here." Jake shook his head. "This is my responsibility. I led us here, and I'll finish what we started." He looked around at his crew, Sam Baker, who had served with him for 10 years, Amy Walsh, who had kept their broken technology working, Lisa Carter, who had given humanity hope when there was none. They were good people, and they deserved better than to die in a battle that should never have been theirs to fight. But that was what it meant to be human. When everyone else gave up, humans kept fighting. When the galaxy abandoned them, humans found a way to survive. And when the universe itself was threatened, humans stepped forward to defend it. "Get the generator ready," Jake ordered. "We're going to save a galaxy that gave up on us." The Endurance shook as another Devourer weapon struck its hull. Jake Morrison held onto his command chair as sparks flew from damaged control panels. Around him, his crew worked frantically to keep the ship flying, while Lisa Carter prepared the quantum resonance generator for its final mission. "Hull breach, on deck 7, reported Sam Baker. "Emergency bulkheads are sealed." "How's the generator, Lisa?" Jake asked. "Ready to go," she replied. "But remember, once we detonate it inside the command ship, the feedback will destroy their entire network. It should stop all the Devourers in this sector." Jake nodded. Through the main screen, he could see the battle raging around them. The human fleet was down to 15 ships, but they were still fighting. The Defiant was using its mining equipment to tear chunks out of a Devourer's hull. A research vessel was ramming enemy ships with its sensor array. The tactics made no sense, but they were working. "Captain," Amy Walsh called from our station. "I'm detecting something strange. The other Federation fleets are changing their tactics." Jake looked at the sensor readings. The Zephyrian ships were no longer moving in perfect formation. Instead, they were attacking individually, using random patterns. The Mindari vessels were abandoning their coordinated telepathic attacks in favor of chaotic strikes. "They're copying us," Jake realized. "The Federation is learning to fight like humans." "It's working," Amy said with excitement. "The Dev are having trouble adapting to the new tactics." Across the galaxy, the tide of battle was turning. The Luminants, beings of pure energy, who had existed since the birth of the universe, were learning to be unpredictable. The mechanical constructors were abandoning their logical programs in favor of improvised attacks. Species that had prided themselves on order and reason were embracing chaos, but the human fleet was still dying. The Endurance was barely holding together, and the other ships were in even worse condition. They had shown the galaxy how to fight the Devourers, but they would not live to see the victory. "All ships," Jake announced. "This is Morrison. We're going to make our final run at the command ship. Cover us as long as you can." "Sir," came Rick Stone's voice from the Defiant. "We're with you all the way." Jake smiled. 6 years ago, Rick had wanted to prepare for war against the Federation. Now he was dying to save them. Humans were strange that way. The Endurance accelerated toward the massive command ship. The Devourer vessel was the size of a small moon, its organic hull pulsing with alien life. Weapons that could destroy stars tracked the approaching human ship. "Evasive maneuvers," Jake ordered. "Don't let them lock onto us." Amy threw the ship into a wild series of turns and rolls. The Endurance twisted through space like a drunken bird, avoiding the massive energy beams that tried to swat it down. Behind them, the remaining human ships followed, their own chaotic movements impossible to predict. "We're taking heavy damage," Sam reported. "Multiple hull breaches, engine efficiency down to 60%. "We just need to get close enough," Jake said. "Lisa, how much longer?" 2 minutes to optimal insertion point," she replied. "But we'll need to get inside their hull." Jake looked at the massive command ship growing larger on the screen. Its surface was covered with weapons and defensive systems, all designed to keep enemies away. But it was also covered with ports and docking bays, places where smaller vessels could enter. "There," Amy pointed to a section of the hull that looks like a landing bay. "Take us in," Jake ordered. The Endurance dove toward the opening, its hull scraping against the alien metal as it forced its way inside. The landing bay was huge, designed for ships much larger than the human vessel. Strange organic walls pulsed with bioluminescent light, and the air was thick with alien atmosphere. "We're inside," Amy announced, "but we're not alone." The bay was filled with smaller Devourer vessels, ship-sized creatures that looked like a cross between machines and insects. They began moving toward the Endurance, their weapons charging. "All hands, prepare for boarding action," Jake announced. "We need to buy Lisa time to plant the generator." The human crew grabbed their weapons and prepared to fight. They were soldiers, scientists, and engineers who had volunteered for a suicide mission. They were not warriors like the Federation's military specialists, but they were humans, and humans did not give up. The Devourer creatures attacked with mechanical precision, their weapons and movements perfectly coordinated. But the humans fought back with desperate creativity. They used tools as weapons, turned ship systems into traps, and employed tactics that no military manual had ever taught. "Generator is armed," Lisa announced. "I need to get it to the ship's central core." "How far?" Jake asked, firing his weapon at a Devourer that was trying to break through the ship's hull. "About 1 kilometer, through hostile territory," she replied. "I'll need an escort." Jake looked around at his crew. They were outnumbered and outgunned, fighting an enemy that was designed to be perfect. But they were still fighting. "Sam, Amy, you're with me," he said. "We're going to get Lisa to the core." "Sir," Sam protested, "someone needs to stay and command the ship." "The ship's done its job," Jake replied. "Now we finish ours." The small group fought their way through the Devourer vessel, using corridors that pulsed with alien life. The walls seemed to watch them, and the air was filled with sounds that no human ear was meant to hear. But they kept moving, driven by the knowledge that the fate of the galaxy depended on them. Behind them, the Endurance continued to fight. The crew that remained aboard used every weapon they had, turning the ship itself into a fortress. They held off the Devourer creatures, buying precious time for Jake and his team. "Central core is just ahead," Lisa announced, consulting her scanner. "But there's something else. The core is protected by some kind of entity, something that controls the hive mind." They entered a vast chamber at the heart of the ship. The walls were covered with organic technology that pulsed with energy. In the center of the room was a creature unlike anything they had ever seen. It was part machine, part plant, and part something else entirely. Thousands of cables connected it to the ship's systems, and its eyes glowed with ancient intelligence. "The Queen," Amy whispered. "It's the Queen of the Devourers." The creature spoke, its voice echoing in their minds rather than their ears. "You," are the chaotic species, the ones who cannot be predicted. You have caused much disruption. We've caused a lot more than that, Jake replied. We've shown the galaxy how to fight you. Yes, your unpredictability is ... interesting. We have never encountered a species that actively embraces chaos. It is inefficient, but effective. Is that supposed to be a compliment? The Queen moved closer, its massive form towering over the humans. We consume order. We devour perfection. But chaos ... chaos is different. It cannot be consumed because it cannot be understood. Lisa stepped forward, the quantum generator in her hands. Then you know why we're here. To destroy us, yes, but also to save us. Your chaos has shown us something we had forgotten. The beauty of unpredictability. The value of inefficiency. Jake felt confused. What are you talking about? We were, once, like you, long ago, before we became what we are now. We were chaotic, creative, unpredictable. But we evolved beyond that. We became perfect, and in becoming perfect, we became empty. The Queen's voice was filled with something Jake had never expected to hear from a devourer. Sadness. We consume other species because we seek what we have lost, the spark of creativity, the chaos of life. But we can never truly possess it, because the act of consuming destroys what we seek. So what do you want? Jake asked. We want to remember what we were. To be chaotic again. To be ... human. Lisa looked at the quantum generator in her hands. The feedback loop won't just destroy your network. It will restore your original nature. You'll become individuals again, instead of a collective. Yes, but many of us will die in the process. The collective has sustained us for millions of years. Without it, we may not survive. Jake understood. The Queen was asking them to choose between genocide and transformation. They could destroy the devourers completely, or they could try to save them by returning them to their original chaotic nature. What guarantee do we have that you won't just start consuming the galaxy again? Jake asked. None, the Queen admitted. But what guarantee does the galaxy have that any species will remain peaceful? You humans were excluded from galactic society for your aggressive nature, yet here you are, dying to save species that abandoned you. Jake looked at his team. Amy and Sam were waiting for his decision. Lisa was holding the device that could either destroy or transform an entire species. The choice was his. Lisa, he said finally, set the generator to restoration mode. Sir. Amy looked surprised. Are you sure? The Federation gave up on us because we were too chaotic, Jake explained. They were wrong. Maybe we can be wrong, too. Lisa activated the generator. The device hummed with power, its quantum field spreading through the ship's systems. The Queen closed its eyes as the feedback loop began. Thank you, it said, for showing us that chaos is not weakness, that being unpredictable is not a flaw, that being human is not something to be ashamed of. The generator exploded in a burst of quantum energy. The feedback cascaded through the Devourer network, reaching every ship in the fleet. Jake watched as the massive vessels began to change, their uniform shapes becoming varied and individual. The collective consciousness that had driven the Devourers for millions of years dissolved. In its place, millions of individual minds awakened, each one unique and chaotic and wonderfully unpredictable. Some of the Devourers died in the transformation, their bodies unable to survive without the collective, but others lived, and for the first time in eons, they were truly alive. Jake felt the ship shudder as the changes reached their location. The Queen opened its eyes, and Jake saw something new in them. Not the cold intelligence of a hive mind, but the warm chaos of individual thought. My name is ... The creature paused, as if remembering something long forgotten. My name is Zara. I had almost forgotten. Nice to meet you, Zara, Jake said. I'm Jake Morrison, and these are my friends. Around them, the Devourer's ship was transforming. The organic walls became more varied, more individual. The perfect order of the hive mind was replaced by the beautiful chaos of independent thought. What happens now? Amy asked. Now we go home, Jake replied. All of us. The galaxy is big enough for everyone. The journey back to human space took weeks. The transformed devourers, now calling themselves the Liberated, worked alongside the surviving Federation ships to repair the damage from the war. The galaxy was scarred, but it was healing. Jake stood on the bridge of a new ship, provided by the grateful Federation. The Endurance had been destroyed in the final battle, but its crew had survived. They were heroes now, the humans who had saved the galaxy. Sir, Sam announced, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's President Santos. The President's face appeared on the screen. She was smiling, something Jake had not seen in years. Captain Morrison, she said, the Federation has formally apologized for the exclusion decree. They're asking us to rejoin Galactic Society, not as junior members, but as full partners. What did you tell them? Jake asked. I told them we'd consider it, but this time, we join as equals. No more being told that we're too chaotic or too aggressive. The galaxy needs our chaos. Jake nodded. And what about the Unity movement and the Defiance Coalition? Helen Ross has admitted she was wrong. She's working with the Federation to establish new policies for dealing with chaotic species. Rick Stone is helping to train alien forces in unpredictable tactics. We're all working together now. As the transmission ended, Jake looked out at the stars. The galaxy was still dangerous, still full of unknown threats, but it was also full of hope. The species that had been abandoned for being too chaotic had proven that chaos was not weakness, it was strength. The Devourers were learning to be individuals again. The Federation was learning to embrace unpredictability, and humanity was learning that sometimes the traits that others see as flaws are actually the things that make you special. The galaxy had given up on them, but Jake Morrison and his crew had never given up on the galaxy, and in the end, that had made all the difference. Dr. Amy Walsh, now promoted to Admiral, stood beside him. So what's next, Captain? Jake smiled. Now we explore. The galaxy is big, and there are probably other species out there who need to learn that being different isn't something to be ashamed of. And if we find more enemies like the Devourers, then we'll fight them the same way we fought these ones. With chaos, creativity, and the refusal to give up. Behind them, the stars stretched out into infinity. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, and humanity was finally free to explore it all. They had been cast out for being too chaotic, too unpredictable, too human. But in the end, being human was exactly what the galaxy needed.